All right, are we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hi. So I am here with Santiago Venegas on
Your
the.
husband.
Yeah, I was going to say that. We're married. But we're talking today about the new album that is going to be released very soon. And even though I'm married to you, I have some questions and some things that I don't know the answer to that I'm looking forward to hearing about. So, this is your first album, and obviously, coming late in life. So, I wanted to go back and um, talk about your journey with music and how you ended up here. So, my first question is, um, do you remember when you first held a guitar for the very first time?
Huh. Good question. Um, I think the first time I held a guitar was probably in my teens on a trip I did with my dad to my godfather's farm. And he just had I think I was around probably like 15, 16 years old. And he had a guitar laying around. I remember it being super out of tune and really dusty. So I guess it was just there because he thought it looked cool, which it did. And I grabbed it and I didn't do anything with it, but, uh, yeah, that would have been the first time. So when I picked it up, I already had this, I was already in love with music but I don't think I had really thought about playing guitar at that point.
Yeah, I wonder why you hadn't thought about playing guitar because I know that music was a really big deal in your house, that your dad listened to music and loved to share his music, and it was a big part of your growing up. It was a big part of the way that he would entertain and socialize. So why do you think that you hadn't really thought about playing until you were a teenager?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I had played saxophone before in elementary and middle school. No, yeah, in elementary and middle school, I was in the school band. I played alto saxophone. I loved it. I was pretty good at it. Um, and so I knew how to read music, all that, and I was already big music lover. Um, but sorry, what was the question again? Why did I not?
Yeah, why do you think it took you until your teenage years to actually pick up a guitar?
I think I guess I don't know why, to be honest. I've never thought about it, but I do remember exactly when I did want to pick up a guitar.
Tell me
I
about
mean,
it.
I guess I didn't want to pick up a guitar because it didn't seem like an open option. This was in Colombia in the 80s, and there's no like guitar center there or anything. Or I mean, now I'm sure there's a lot more music shops that have proper gear, but if there were any stores, I was unaware of them. Um, I didn't have any friends that played guitar.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just didn't know anybody that played guitar, so I never really thought of it as a possibility. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess that's why. I mean, up until then, I loved music, but it was mostly as a music listener. I mean, I did play saxophone, but I never made my music. I was just in the school band.
Hmm.
So, we just played what we were told. And it was fun. I loved it. But I never tried making my own music. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. So when you did get your first guitar, how old were you, and how did you feel when you got it?
Oh, well, that was a lot later. My first guitar, I was in college. Um, that was probably in maybe around my second semester. So that would be like 1995, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And I got it because I was going to start guitar lessons. Actually, I started guitar lessons. My first guitar lesson was actually without a guitar. I didn't have a guitar. And my teacher Tito Gomez. He came and he had a little starter guitar. The strings were like a mile off the fretboard. He's like, here, you can start with this one if you want. It's, you know, I don't know, $50. And so that was the first one. And the first thing he told me was, just hold it. And I don't think he knew I was left-handed at the moment, but I told him, by the way, I'm left-handed. He says, oh, okay. Well, so I asked, so what do I do? What do I do? He says, just hold it however it's comfortable. Which was really great because most guitar teachers, from what I've heard, they actually tell you to hold it right-handed immediately, regardless of, if you're lefty or right-handed. So I really think he did the right thing of just telling me to hold it however it was comfortable, because that's just how my body would, I guess, perform better or learn better. And unfortunately, I held it as a lefty because finding a proper left-handed guitar is really, really hard. So yeah, no, it felt good, but it felt intimidating. Especially since I knew I was going to start by studying classical guitar. So the word classical is like this big, big word that kind of makes it sound a little scary and more complicated, but I was very excited because I had been at that point in 95, I had been wanting to play guitar I had been wanting to play guitar at that point for, I don't know, maybe 5 years. It was already, the worm was kind of traveling around in my head already. So.
And during that period of time when you were thinking about playing guitar, were you thinking about playing classical? Was that where your passion was?
No. The reason I didn't pick classical. It was that just happened to be the guitar teacher that I found. Mm-hmm. And he was like 100% classical guitarist, classically trained. He was from the National University in Columbia, which was like a really big deal, and they had like one of the best music programs in the country, if not the best. So that's just the teacher I got. And I came in thinking, okay, if I want to learn properly, then I guess classical is like the ultimate foundation. Kind of like if you want to be a dancer, then you want to learn right? Okay, then start with ballet, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like that.
And did you feel like it was giving you what you needed, like emotionally? Like did you have like that clear vision of like, this is the step that I've got to go through before I get to play what I really want to play?
I guess yes and no. I was confident that what I was doing with this teacher was giving me a good foundation. Mm-hmm. He would even give me examples of what like pop music guitar players would be doing compared to what we were doing. As far as the way that you play a song, the way that you accompany a singer, whereas the big difference between a pop guitar player or a rock guitar player and a classical guitar player is that the classical guitar is a solo instrument. So it's doing everything. It's doing the melody, the harmonies, the bass lines, everything. So I was thinking, oh my God, this is superior. And with this, I'll be able to do anything. And fortunately, at the time, I was like super open-minded. So the fact that I was learning classical guitar I wasn't telling myself, oh, I'm going to be a classical guitarist. I was thinking, oh, wow, how could I use this to do some maybe new kind of music? I wasn't really thinking of writing my own music. I was more just thinking of the possibilities. And I thought, oh, what would this Bach classical piece sound like on an electric guitar? I don't see people doing that. I mean, I'm sure people were, but this was before the internet. So, yeah, that's kind of where my head was going.
So, I'm married to you, so I know what a creative person you are. I know all of the different creative journeys that you've been on. So we're talking about you playing guitar and during your college years, and here you are, a wife, 2 kids that are about to go to college themselves. later. How did you get to this point in your musical journey?
Well, I did photography for over 20 years. I mean, I've never stopped being a music geek. I mean, I love collecting music, and I've never zeroed in on one or two genres. I love all kinds of music. Um, I think that I guess I've started my musical journey since the beginning, because since I love all kinds of music, you know, all the way from Taylor Swift to Paganini or weird Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum, all that has been like training my mind um, with different kinds of sounds, different approaches to songwriting. Um, but most importantly, knowing that there really are no rules. I mean, there's a lot of musicians, a lot of artists that do have their own self-imposed rules. But in my case, I feel like since I love all kinds of music, I don't put those rules on myself because I have appreciation for so many different kinds of styles. I don't even remember what the question was.
Yeah, no, you answered it. So, so my mom used to teach art classes to adults who, a lot of the adults had always wanted to paint, but never had the courage to paint. And it took almost a lifetime to get them to the point where they would even allow themselves to entertain the possibility that they might be able to do something creative. So I'm just curious, having music kind of percolating in your brain and in the back of your head for so many years, what do you think gave you that push to go ahead and do it?
I guess just loving it so much. I mean, the first time there was a very key moment back when I think I was in around 10th grade in high school, where I saw this ad on TV. I remember it was on HBO, and they put an ad of, oh, we're going to air this Pink Floyd concert on such and such date. And I was already aware of Pink Floyd, but I wasn't like this huge mega Pink Floyd fan that I am now. And I was going to be out of town at the time, so I told a friend of mine, oh my God, could you please record this for me? I have to see it. And they recorded it, and then I saw it, and that show just blew my mind so much. I'd never seen anything like it, even though it was on this tiny little TV coming out of this tiny little speaker. And just seeing David Gilmour on stage, I just immediately thought, that's what I want to do. Mm. I'm just getting shivers just thinking about it. But why did it take so long? I mean, there's many reasons. My mom's a painter. Since I was little, I've had this facility for visual arts. So, as an artist, a big part of doing art, I mean, it's a complicated feeling. It's the feeling of validation, right? So I had all these opportunities to get validated as a visual artist, specifically with photography, which, I did okay. I was getting constant validation, whether it was by getting paid or getting into a gallery or all this positive feedback. But I remember at one point during college, during my advertising undergraduate degree in Columbia, I told my parents, I'm going to drop out. This was like, I had like one more semester to go to finish. And I said, I want to go to Berklee College of Music. I want to study music production and engineering. I was ready to do it, but even the major that I picked, music production and engineering, is not songwriter, right? So it's like, okay, I want to go do music, but I'm still too afraid to do my own music. Mm-hmm. But I almost took the leap. I sat down with both of my parents, got them in the same room, which was, they're divorced. So that was, actually, I don't even remember if they were in the same room or not. But anyway, I gave them the speech and they're like, yeah, all right. And they didn't seem too thrilled, because they knew that I had already started this advertising thing. And advertising is in varying degrees, a creative career, but there's money in it. So they, as parents, I guess they had a sense of security with that I was gonna, I was gonna be okay financially. Whereas music was like this big question mark for them. And even for me, because again, this was before the internet, and before the internet, if you're going to be a musician, it's like you're either going to be a megastar or there's nothing. And I say before the internet because without the internet and living in Colombia, it was very difficult for me, not knowing anybody in the music industry, it was very difficult for me to know what kind of work you could do as a musician. It's like making a movie. It takes a village, mm-hmm. and there's so many different kinds of areas that one can focus on. You can be the cinematographer, you can be the writer, you can be the caterer. Like there's people that just do catering for music. I mean, not for music, for movies. So anyway, I thought I want to do music, but I don't really know what I want to do. I want to go to Berklee because that's where some of my heroes go. And then at some point, somebody told me, "Oh, you're going to do music? Oh, yeah, cool. That's great. Maybe you could make money being in a wedding band." And that just, I remember hearing that, and it just completely crushed my soul. And I thought, yeah, I just don't have what it takes. I can't do it. Screw it. So, and then shortly after that, I got my first photography job, just kind of out of serendipity. And I got that validation, that I wasn't getting with music. With music, it was just, I love it so much, but there was like zero validation. I mean, yes, I could play classical guitar and I could impress my parents' family at the dinner parties, but that wasn't really me expressing myself. Mm-hmm. That was me just learning how to play some Bach. I'm not Bach. So when I got that first photography job, and I kept getting hired and hired and hired over and over and over again, I thought, okay, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do. And I mean, honestly, I was enjoying it. I felt like I was good at it. I liked it. And the validation felt really good. So music was just kind of, it went back into me just being a music fan and just being a listener. My guitar playing actually also went down. I didn't practice as much as I did before. Because before that, like, I was very disciplined. I would practice every single day. I had, this routine. First I practiced this, and this, and this, and this. But after that wedding band thing, yeah. The fear just, it just took over.
All right, so that's a good segue into talking about the title of your album.
Yeah. The title is probably too far away, but is Kill Fear. I went through all these different options of titles for the album, because this album is really about finally doing this. And I've heard a similar phrase before, like there's that phrase in Dune, fear is the mind killer, and that kind of always, that stuck with me, and I thought, yeah, it kind of did kill my mind a bit, at least part of it. It killed my dream. So yeah, kill fear. I've killed my fear, and for a while, I'm sure you remember, I asked you, is the word kill too aggressive, too violent? Is that too evil? Because I'm not an evil person. And you said no, right? Because I think you understood why.
Yeah.
You probably at that point understood better than I did. But ultimately, the explanation for the word kill is that I literally had to like take that fear, see it, and really actively kill it. It wasn't going to come to me. I had to attack it,
Yeah.
like, head on. Otherwise, it was just going to stay there. So I also called it Kill Fear because it's kind of like I'm giving, for lack of a better word, an order to whoever listens to the album. You know, hey, kill your fear too. Because otherwise, it's just not going to go away. It's just going to stay.
Yeah.
I mean, you can become brave about something, but this for me wasn't a matter of like time. Oh, I'm going to work my way up to this. No, I had to do it like in one big swoop.
Yeah.
And fortunately, it worked. So, but it did take like 25 years. Actually, one of the tracks is called, the first track on the album is called 25 Years Later.
Yeah.
That's why it's called that.
Yeah.
It's because...
All right, we're going to get to that in just a second. But before we start digging into each of the songs that are on the album, I want to talk about the dreaded question, which you have been getting and you still
all dreaded so far.
aren't really sure how to answer.
What kind of music do you do?
What kind of music do you do?
Oh, boy. Yeah, I was even thinking about it past few days because I knew we were going to do the interview and I knew this was going to come up. It has to come up. I mean, it's come up with my photography over and over again. Because in photography, I never really stuck to one genre or one style. I mean, I guess you could say that the majority of what I did was landscape, but I also did a bunch of other things that weren't. Mm-hmm. So I struggled with, I wouldn't say I struggled with describing my photography. Mm-hmm. You know, what do I say? But a lot of my favorite artists never stuck to any one particular style or genre, or they just kind of do what was true to them. And I don't do this. I didn't do it with my photography because I'm a fan of those artists. I did it in my photography because that's just how I am. I guess in some ways that a big part of that inspiration or that allowing myself to do that is seeing my mom evolve as an artist, because she's also never really stuck to one thing. She's done all sorts of things. She's primarily a painter, but she's done drawing, she's done jewelry design, she's done furniture design, fashion design, and even within her painting, I mean, it's kind of, she's done it all, right? But the beauty of it is that you can see any of the artworks that she's done throughout her entire career, and you can totally see that it's her. So there's a thread through the whole thing. I talk so much. What was the question again?
You're answering it. Like, what kind of music do you do?
What kind of music do you do?
Mm-hmm.
So, for now, right, because that could change. Mm-hmm. At least in this album. This album, what kind of music is this album? Mm-hmm. Well, it's instrumental. There's just one track that has a very small vocal, which even the vocal, even though that vocal has a lyric, it's almost like an instrument also, because it's not a vocal where you're like talking. It's just like single words. But anyway, so it's instrumental. It's, I don't know, for the few people that I've played it for, they all say that they see like images. They say it's like cinematic, that it sounds like a soundtrack. Mm-hmm. I'd love to be able to say that I do soundtracks, but it's not a soundtrack because there's no movie or, attached to it. I guess imageless soundtrack.
Okay, but here's my question, because I was actually thinking about this, because you have the background in photography, and when people listen to your album, they do see images and they do feel that it's cinematic, and there's certain visuals that with different songs that really come to mind. So my question is, when you're writing a song, do you have any visual in mind as you're creating the song?
Not necessarily. But with one, I kind of did.
Yeah.
With Palindrome. That's the one that I... No, wait, there's two. Palindrome and First Flight. Those two. I had an image. And in other songs, the images would come later in the process.
Right.
Like maybe, like there's one song called Opathish, which the intro to the song, it sounds like a ghost inside an big cavernous haunted house, and the piano's over there in the corner, and it's playing by itself like a ghost is playing it. Kind of like that scene in Crimson Peak.
Mm-hmm.
Remember? It's kind of like that. So when I was doing that part, that's kind of what I was thinking of, even though I had already mapped out the song and everything. But from a production standpoint of like, I'm going to make the piano sound like it's way over there, and I'll have some scratchy noises. And so in that sense, yes, I'm totally thinking images. In the song First Flight, actually the idea of flying came later also. Because when I started that one, I just thought, I'm going to do a song where it's just a really calm and very beautiful, simple melody. And then as it was coming out, I thought, oh, this is kind of like, flying gently over the mountains, and that's kind of how it came out. And then the song Palindrome is literally an image. And for those of you who don't know what a palindrome is a word that is read the same both forwards and backwards. Kind of like Anna, Otto, what other palindromes are there? I'm looking at the patch on my jacket. The movie Tenet, the word Tenet. Mm-hmm. Okay. So anyway, I thought, well, what if I made a song that, it starts and it's got X melody, and then at the middle, the whole first half of the song flips over and it's all played in reverse. So when I have it on screen, as I was making it, like even in Logic, where I'm making the song, all the keyboard parts, the guitar parts, it looks like a symmetric drawing. So, oddly enough, a lot of my photography has symmetry. Mm-hmm. And that definitely came from that. I was kind of being a photographer with that song.
So here's what I'm curious about. How you actually build a song, like what your songwriting process begins with, because as you know, I design clothes, make clothes, and the first ingredient that I have to have is the fabric. And when I see the fabric and when I feel the fabric, then it tells me what it wants to be. So that's my foundation. That's where I build my garments. I don't see it beforehand. I have to see that piece of fabric first. How does that work with your songwriting? Is there a melody that's in your head, or is there an instrument that you're thinking about? How does that first spark come to you?
Well, in this album, which is the only one, and they're the only songs I've ever done. I mean, this can change in the future. I'm referencing my photography a lot because that's the other creative thing that I've done. And as I've told you a million times, I've seen so many parallels between doing photography and doing music. But for this album, all these songs started, not all of them, almost all of them started out as little demos that I did for a music class, a guitar class that I was in for a while, where the teacher had me do small demos for jamming along with the guitar. Actually, you can ask me about that later. How did I do the first one? But for the songs in this album, they started from ideas not musical ideas, but just like ideas. So like, for example, for the song Opafish, which is the one that starts out with the creepy piano, with that one, I thought, okay, I'm gonna, at the time my hand was injured and I couldn't play guitar. It's before my surgery. Okay, I'm gonna do the heaviest song I can, but without electric guitar. Because typically we think of heavy music with, a crushing electric guitar. So I'm going to do a really, really heavy song without electric guitar. So I did all these like weird chords that sounded really kind of literally distorted. Not the actual sound, but like the chord was very dissonant and made your face go like this. So that's how that one started. And then there's the First Flight, which I was thinking I just want to make a really beautiful melody. So that it's just basic ideas. There's another song called Home Love, which started with, I want to make an entire song without melody. I just want to make a song with just chords. So then I get started. So yeah, pretty much almost the entire album was like that.
So, do you feel like it's more that you were, like, in some ways, you just were kind of bursting with ideas? You'd have like a lot of years to like build up
Yeah.
all of these different ideas about how you wanted to express yourself musically, and like it was just too hard to kind of pick which one, so you just kind of had to dabble in all of them? Or did you feel like it was much more of like an intellectual exercise for you?
I think it was more of an intellectual exercise because I didn't have any ideas of how to write songs throughout the years because I was too afraid. I always thought of making music like this godlike ability. Because that's how I've always seen the musicians that I admire. It's like they have this superpower. And since they're superpowered, well, I'm just a basic person. There's no way I could achieve that. So I didn't even try. That was me justifying my fear, right? So, yeah, I think I'm intellectualizing it. And then all of those years of being a music fan and listening to all these different kinds of sounds, I guess creeped into then however it came out after thinking, okay, I'm going to make the heaviest song possible without a guitar. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. And I mean,
Plus, I'm not really, I don't have any, I mean, I have training in classical guitar. That's really the only musical training I've had. Well, and then the saxophone. And I was in the children's chorus of Maryland when I was little. But none of that involved songwriting. It was just performing. So I've never had any songwriting training. So I kind of had to figure out my own way of doing it.
yeah,
Like, I didn't go online and go, how do I write a song? I never did that.
right.
And I don't think I ever will. Because I'm just building things the way I feel I like.
Yeah.
A lot of the music that I love does not have a traditional song structure. Like chorus, verse, intro, whatever. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just like it to be completely open. And I guess the Home Love song, which as a demo, I called it the chord song because it had no melody. Yeah, it's a song without melody.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Is that intellectualizing or is that de-intellectualizing?
Well, I think maybe it starts with an intellectual idea, and then it goes forward into something that is beyond that. But I think that's one of the reasons why your music and this album is difficult to categorize. It's
What would you call it?
It's because it's a lot. It's a collection of experiments.
Yeah. Experiments to learn.
Yeah.
Because literally this whole album I've learned everything.
Right.
Because now we're in an age, like if I would have started writing music 25 years ago when I first wanted to, I was too afraid to. When I first wanted to do some kind of music. You couldn't have a home studio. That didn't exist.
Right.
You'd have to go into like a real professional studio. And to do that, well, a whole bunch of other things need to happen. So now that we can do that, and there's the internet, that's how I've learned how to record. I just look up stuff. How do I record a guitar? How do I, how to do microphone placement? What's a mix bus? What's like all these things that kept popping up, and I'm like, wait, what is that? And I've just learned it on my own, and it's been awesome. I've enjoyed every bit of it, and I'm sure that a couple of years from now, or maybe the day after this thing releases, I'll listen to it. I'm like, oh damn it, that the cymbals should have been down a little bit more, or maybe a little bit of 5K dip here and there, or so the next album I won't say it'll sound better, but it'll sound with however I'm doing it then.
Right. Okay, so I think it's time to get into some of the songs. So I'm gonna get my glasses on because we're gonna start with the first song.
Do you want me to play back a little bit of it, or
yeah,
not?
Sure, if you'd like to. Yeah, absolutely.
Or just yeah.
Okay, so
depends on what you ask me.
Okay, so the first song, 25 Years Later, you already referenced that. Would you like to elaborate a little bit more on that? And is that the reason that you wanted the song to be the first on the record?
25 years later. I came up with the titles later, not before, in case you were planning on asking that. So I was in this guitar class, and my teacher says, so the reason I was in this guitar class a few years ago was because I wanted to learn how to improvise better on guitar. Because I love playing along to music, or I like to just sit on the sofa and play guitar. That's what I liked to do back then. So I want to learn how to improvise better. And so I tell my teacher says, okay, so what I want you to do for next week is I want you to create a little jam track in GarageBand and put some chords on there, just like we talked about today. Basically what he talked about that day was the circle of fifths, which is kind of a way to put chords together. I'm sure real musicians out there would say, no, that's not what it is. But that's how I use it right now. So put together a little jam track, don't do anything, and I'm like, oh no, that means I have to write a song. He's like, no, not a song. Just, just a few chords and a little beat, and that's it. Nice and short. I'm like, okay, all right. So I had this little MIDI keyboard and the laptop and some headphones, and I had never really done anything in GarageBand, like that. Mm-hmm. And it was really scary at first because, 25 years of fear. And then as soon as I got started and I put some chords together, I was just in like this tunnel of I don't know, it was awesome. Like,
you're in the zone?
I was in a zone. I wasn't thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be a musician. I wasn't like that far, but I was just really zoning in that little jam track thing, which ultimately turned into, now it's a full song, but even in that assignment that I had to do for that week, it turned into a proper, 3 or 4 minute song with an actual melody and it even had some production behind it with effects and intros and outros. And I was like, oh my God, look at what I just did. Mm-hmm. And I just kept listening to it over and over and over on headphones. And I played it for you and I'm like, oh my God, I did it. Look at this. And I took it to the teacher the next week and even he was really impressed. He loved it too. So, and then we just went from there. So that was that. That's why that one's called 25 Years Later. Mm-hmm. Of course, now the version on the album, I extended it, put in some new parts in it, and Swapped out the keyboard melody for guitar, because at the time I couldn't play guitar because of my hand injury. Um, yeah,
Well,
that's that one.
that makes sense that that would be the first one
Yeah.
on the record too. Is that one of the reasons why you
Yes.
picked it as the first
Yeah,
one?
yeah. That's the first one I did. So that's plus. I mean, when I did the the song sequencing, it was really all about the sounds and the flow, one thing going into the next. A lot like editing a portfolio
Right.
with photography. You want to have a good first image to like get the viewer hooked, and then another one, and then the next one has to have a big bang. It's kind of like doing a mixtape, which is something I used to do as a
Right.
teenager very passionately. So I was using all that life experience that I had with sequencing, whether it's sequencing songs for a mixtape with somebody else's music, or sequencing my own photography for a photo editor, or for a gallery for exhibit. Um, I did that with the album. So the 25 years later song, just it's kind of a coincidence that it ended up being the first track on the album. For some reason it just felt like a really good intro regardless of its origin. But the fact that it was the first one I did is pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, you may not have been thinking about it, in very clear terms, but there is, there is poetry, I think, to that being
Oh yeah.
the first song. And I think that you hit on something that I think a lot of people who try to teach creativity and try to encourage their students to find it's just going down to that smallest little block, that smallest little piece that you do, and then like once you've like the kids book that we had for the kids when they were little called The Dot, and it was about
Oh
the art
yeah.
teacher telling the student, that said she couldn't draw, then go, go do something, and she put like a dot on the page,
Oh
but
my
the
God.
teacher made,
That could have been the title of the song.
yeah,
Or that could have been the title of the album.
yeah,
The Dot.
yeah. The teacher made such a big deal about it, and then
Yeah.
she's like,
I
"Okay,
never thought of that.
now go make more dots." And then she makes more dots, and then before long, then she's connecting the dots, and it just goes on and on and on. So it
Well, I guess
sounds like you kind of found
The Dot.
the dot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll never be able to use that title though because this is The Dot.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So, all right. So the next track is, I don't even know how you typically say this, if you just say all the letters, but WWWWWH.
WWWWH stands for who, what, where, when, why, how.
Yeah. Okay. So on this track, we actually get to hear your voice, which is the
Yes.
only one
Yeah.
on the album
Yes.
that we get to hear your voice.
Where I sing, you guessed it, who, what, where, when, why, how.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to hear that I guess it's a phrase a lot when I was little in school. Like in kindergarten.
You heard it or you said it?
No, I was being told all the time who, what, where, when, why, how.
Oh.
The 5 W's. And one thing I had been thinking for a while, while I was starting to do these songs, was okay, if I were to sing something, I mean, obviously I would need a lyric, unless it's just, oohs and ahs. But the lyric, my first lyric will probably just be something like super, 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 super simple. At one point, I even thought of using the Crazy Kid quotes thing that we have, where we quote Calder and Sienna, crazy things they say. Maybe I'll do that someday. So I thought, okay, well, who, what, where, when, why, how is kind of cool because it's simple. I could, there's like a musicality to it. It almost looks like a chord. And I don't know, it's kind of like got an existential kind of theme going through it. Yeah, and That's kind of, but then within the song, there's like a phone call. You remember?
Yeah.
There's little bits of a phone call like, oh, nobody's picking up, or I forget the exact words, but um, like the phone's not working, or and that basically the idea of that came as I was doing the song. I thought, oh, maybe I could do it about this, and it's about like this calling that I've had since I was little of being a music lover, but I I never answered that call for so long, you know?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And at the very end of the song, you actually hear a dial up beep, beep, boop, 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 boop. It's actually 3370731, which is the phone number of my childhood home in Baltimore, in Towson.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of what that one is.
Were you intimidated about singing?
Um, Not really, because it's kind of a lyric. It's more of just sounds. It's just
Mm.
notes. Plus, when I sing it, it's like this big chord because it's lots of like tracks together. Um, the lyric is so simple that it's not like I'm being vulnerable with the lyric.
Mm.
Maybe I'll do that someday. But no, I literally just thought of it as another sound.
Yeah.
You know, because that's one of the things I've enjoyed a lot with making this album is that in with these keyboards and also with guitar, of course, I've been exploring different sounds in electric guitar for years, but on the like the synth sounds, it's like there's no end to what kind of sounds you can do. So that's been a big playground for me recording this. So the singing part was really just another sound.
Mm.
But I still insist it's an instrumental album, even though that is that vocal. But I just don't really see that as like a, um, yeah, me.
Yeah.
I mean, it is me singing, but it's not really. It's
Right.
more of just a sound.
Yeah.
And even though it does have a lyric, it's not really. You don't walk around saying, "Who, what, where, when, why, how."
Yeah.
Uh, yes, and how was your day today? No, it's more of just, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that brings us to the next track, which is I'm Not Joe Pass.
I'm not Joe Pass.
Okay. So I'm married to you. So I know
You know.
what a personal story
Yeah.
this is. So if you're comfortable, why don't you
Yeah.
share?
It's funny because this this song is so personal, but it's so wacky. So it's not like, ooh, the emotional song. If you hear it, you'll know. But anyway, I'm not. So Joe Pass is like this legendary jazz guitar player. Um, and so in my guitar lesson, the teacher who will go unnamed, um, so in after I had done this demo for him of the jam track, I did a bunch of other little songs because it just kept flowing out. And I did like, I don't know, 4 or 5 tiny little 2 minute songs. Um, and very quickly I realized, oh, or not realized, but I wanted to know how to, like I was coming up with all these melodies, right? I thought, how do I make a chord for a melody? How do I make chords for a melody to go with a melody? I mean, I could go in and do it by ear, which I did for some of these songs, and that's cool. But I wanted to know if there's a way that I could actually like analyze the melody and see what chords are technically available, like by the book. And, you know, with photography, we break the rules all the time,
Yeah.
but we also know how important it is to know them,
Yeah.
whether it's for a stepping stone or for a guideline or for. So yeah, I wanted to ask my teacher, how do I find a chord for a melody? So I had this tiny little demo, which lasted about 2 minutes, and it had a crazy melody on it, like the melody that you hear on the track. And I knew there was something there. Like I really wanted to do something with this. And he's like, okay, well, wait, I think I'm telling this backwards. I told him, I want to learn how to extract chords from melodies. And then he said, okay, for next week, bring me a tiny little bit of music of your own with just a really simple melody, with a little melody, and we'll get the chords out. I said, okay. So I went home and I did this 2-minute little thing, and the melody was just nuts. And I thought, okay, well, he's formally trained. You know, he went to music school. He'll be able to figure it out. Of course. He's a pro, right? And I went to this, and I went the next week to my lesson, and I played him what I did. And he was just kind of like a little, I don't know, like he didn't know what to do with it. And he said, oh man, this is too complicated. I'm not Joe Pass. Like he literally said that. And he even started to look at the time he had a little clock on his desk, I guess, to keep track of the time of his lessons. And yeah, he was just saying, no, it's too complicated. You got to do something simpler. And I'm like, no, but let's do it. I like that it's complicated. I mean, I can get a chord out of a simple melody. I can get a chord out of Mary Had a Little Lamb. Let's dive in. But no, he just, no. So I don't know what was going through his head. I don't know if he really couldn't but that was I went back one more time, but then after that I thought, this is just not a good fit for me because, yeah. Because, yeah, I can't think of how to describe that feeling. He wasn't like, I don't know, as a teacher, I think if you have a student that is showing enthusiasm and ambition, it would be a cool thing to go with it, right?
Yeah.
And not step back from it, especially for him, who was, is very talented. He's got all the training. He knows. So yeah, never went back.
Yeah. Well,
but I had a lot of fun with the song, and I ended up figuring out the chords on my own. I don't know if I did it the right way. But I figured out something that pleases me, which at the end of the day, that's all that matters. And in the middle of the song, there is a section where I kind of reenact what happened in that lesson. But you'll have to stream the song to hear it. So yeah, that's that one. I'm Not Joe Pass.
Yeah. I bet it felt good.
Oh yeah, it felt awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, felt really good. And if anything, that bad experience really pushed me to do more.
Well, if that bad experience had come earlier, it might have actually stopped you.
It might have stopped me.
I think that you had hit.
And it was hard. I mean, we talked about it over and over again, and it's never felt good, but it did motivate me. And yeah, I guess the timing was just right.
Yeah. It was at a moment in your life when you could actually say, no, I'm not going to allow myself to be held back anymore. Enough is enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kill fear.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not excuse me, fear. I'm walking through, or not negotiating with fear. No, you just gotta smack it down.
Yeah. All right. So the next song on the album is Opathish.
Opathish.
And you were talking a little bit earlier about, I think, kind of like the intellectual exercise that you gave yourself to write the song. So your hand was hurt, couldn't play guitar, but you wanted a
My hand was hurt because I didn't practice guitar properly. I didn't warm up properly. I didn't stretch properly, and I injured myself. So, for all you kids out there. So yeah, I couldn't play guitar. But I had done I had done these other little demos, all these little songs. And I think the one that I did right before Opathish was First Flight. And First Flight was, which I guess we'll eventually get to, but I'll say real quickly, was, okay, for this song, I want to make something really soothing, a very simple, beautiful melody, and just, like that. So after having done that, I thought, okay, now I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to make something that's really crushing and I don't know about evil, but yeah, it's really heavy but without guitar, which is kind of like and it's called Opethish because it ended up having, at least to me personally, it reminded me a lot of the band Opeth, which is a Swedish metal band that has a lot of progressive elements to it. So it's not just, guitar, bass, drums. They'll have like organ and like little weird parts here and there. And so it really reminded me of that band. And so, yeah, it's Opethish because it's got kind of an Opethishness to it.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, so this is a little bit of a detour, but because we're talking about Opeth, like what do you like who would you say are your main influences, and do you feel like those influences are reflected in some of the songs that you've done? Did you think about a particular band or musician for each one, or did it just kind of come in certain spots?
that's like 3 or 4 questions.
Yeah.
Well, my all-time number one obsession is Pink Floyd / David Gilmour. There's obviously many others, but that would be my number one. I haven't like deliberately, I'm going to make something that sounds like Pink Floyd. I mean, not at all. But there's the Opeth one, which although I didn't deliberately make it so that it would sound like Opeth to me. The title came after.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, this reminds me of Opeth. I guess there were just a couple. There were very few moments, I guess, in the guitar parts that I did try and channel my inner David Gilmour,
Mm-hmm.
but not in all of them because there's a lot of guitar playing that is not like Pink Floyd. It's just kind of my own. I'm Not Joe Pass
Mm-hmm.
is definitely not like there's no Pink Floyd in there at all, like zero.
Yeah.
As far as it is from Joe Pass as well, it's probably closer to Joe Pass than it is to Pink Floyd. But like I said, I'm not Joe Pass, so definitely not that. I think that. So yeah, just a few little guitar parts. I would channel some David Gilmour. I think after having finished each song, later I would think, oh, this kind of reminds me a little of this one, or like the Home Love reminds me a bit of M83, which is another band I've been into for a few years. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
And then there's a couple of other songs that I don't know where the hell they came from. They just kind of happened, like Fizzy Lifting Drinks.
Mm-hmm.
I can't associate that with anything. Like if I were to really research it, I'm sure I could find something because nothing comes from nowhere. But yeah, that one is completely unique. And yeah, I guess that's partly why it has that name, because that was such an odd little moment in the Willy Wonka movie.
Mm-hmm.
Odd, but odd fun.
Yeah.
Where, oh my God, look, we found this. And, oh my God, it makes us fly. That's what that song is. Oh my God, look at this. We can do this. And that's, and it turned into this song. How cool is that?
Well, we're kind of
It has nothing to do with anything else, but let's put it in there anyway.
we're kind of jumping ahead because we are going to
Yeah,
talk
I know,
about
I know,
that
I know.
song. But which came first? Did you have the idea for Fizzy Lifting Drinks? Like that was the title there, and then you created the song, or
The title came later.
Yeah.
Are we on that one now?
No, we can. I was just curious. Just wanted to
Yeah.
find
Well,
out.
we can edit and we'll reorder.
Yeah.
You want to do that one now?
Sure. Since you're talking about it.
Or
Yeah.
no, let's just go
Yeah,
with the next one
yeah.
and then we'll get back to it.
Yeah. Okay, so 2 words. So this song, I think, is one of your more cinematic ones. I think that
Oh, okay.
that the song is, because there's a few
Yeah.
that I think are spaced throughout the album that feel like they could be a soundtrack. To me, this is one.
Yeah.
And 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 the one, I mean, I don't know if it's because of like kind of like the whooshing sound that you have in the beginning, the wind sound.
Oh, right.
It but I think of like a summer rainstorm
Oh, okay.
whenever I'm listening to this. It's just the image that comes to mind, and all of the things that go along with that.
Well, I'm glad it's a summer rainstorm and not
Yeah,
an annoying winter rainstorm.
yeah. Well, yeah. No, because
Although that'd be a cool song too.
yeah, yeah. But no, this is more of like a pleasant one.
Yeah.
This is a pleasant storm. So
Yeah,
not a scary one.
Yeah, it does have an innocent, pleasant feel to it.
So do I mean, I know we've kind of covered this, but when you're creating the song, are you're not seeing like images like that, or you're just making the music, and it
Yeah.
do you after you've created it, do the images come to you then, or are
Yeah.
you kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
always surprised when someone
Well,
tells
it kind
you?
of comes in gradually because, like, for example, for Two Words, that song started as like the melody that you hear. There's two melodies simultaneously. There's the guitar melody and the bass melody, which kind of talk to each other. Which is actually something I wanted to do originally with the 25 Years Later song. When I first had the melody, like the basic demo of 25 Years Later before it had the name, I thought, oh, once I can, after my hand surgery and I can play guitar again, I want to split the melody into two parts and have like part of the melody be on a keyboard and the other part be on guitar, and there'll be like a call and answer kind of thing. Eventually, that didn't happen, and I did it on the Two Words song. And the way that came about is that, well, first of all, it was just another little song that I started, and it was all with the keyboard, the basic melody with a piano sound. First, it was just the melody, da 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 da, and then I thought, oh, okay, well, this is piano. It's kind of lacking some bass, so I didn't actually do bass guitar or any like synth bass kind of thing. I added the bass on piano, so it was like two separate tracks. I guess you could say the right hand, which is the higher notes, and the left hand of the lower notes. But since I'm not a piano player, I did them separately. So it kind of became a call and answer between the high ones and the low ones, right? And then when I could start playing guitar again, when my hand healed, I thought, oh, it would be pretty cool if the high and the low part were then guitar and bass, because bass guitar is usually played, as the rhythm section of a song. But I wanted to turn it into more of a melodic thing, which has also been done before. I'm not saying I'm the first. So it's call and answer between guitar and bass. And I ended up calling it Two Words for two reasons. Mm-hmm. One, because when I talk about movies with Calder and Sienna, a lot of times the idea comes up that, oh, but nobody liked that movie. Well, nobody liked this movie. Oh, but I love it. And there's a particular movie that I always reference, which is Speed Racer. Because I love that movie since the first time I saw it. But it kind of bombed. Most people hate that movie. They don't like it. So whenever the conversation comes up of unpopular movies or movies that have failed or movies that are bad because nobody likes them, I always say, Two Words. Mm-hmm. And then they already know what I'm trying to say. And then they say, Dad, Speed Racer? And I'm like, yes. So that's the Two Words. And the reason I attached that name to this song, well, one, it's two words because there's like the two parts, the bass and the guitar talking to each other. But also because this song, for the longest time, I wasn't really sure about this one. Like, I really, really liked it. But even now, I can't really explain why I haven't really been sure about it. but it grabs me enough that it's in the album. It's also grabbed other people, the few other people that have heard it. So I'm like,
I
okay,
think
let's.
we had to talk about it. I think
Yeah, yeah,
you told me that you wanted to take it out, and I was like, no, you can't do that.
yeah, yeah. And now I'm glad it's in there because it's kind of it's been an acquired taste for me. And a lot of times the acquired taste works of art that I like end up being my favorites. Some of my favorite bands are the ones that the first time I heard, I wasn't that crazy about them. I don't know if I mentioned to you, one of one way that I categorize art in general is slow art and fast art.
Hmm.
Fast art is the one that grabs you right away,
Yeah.
and slow art is the one that at first you're not sure about and it takes time, and
Yeah.
and then you really, really, really love it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we've talked about this in relation to our photography.
yeah.
That sometimes
Well,
your
yours
photos,
too.
mine are slow.
Yours are super slow,
Yeah.
and mine's kind of a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Some are fast, some are slow.
Fast.
Yeah, I have some fast ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's that one. That was a tough one. The two-word song was a tough one, especially like from like technical, like the mixing and making the bass sound okay with the guitar. And I actually referenced a bit of well, it's not really a reference, but I allowed myself to do something because I heard it on a Pat Metheny song. I don't remember which one it is, but where there's guitar panned all the way to one side and bass all the way on the other side. And within the genre of music that he plays, I'd never heard that before. And it was like that back and forth thing also. And I thought,
Yeah.
let's try that. So, yeah.
And do you typically write all of your songs the way that you wrote this one, with like everything is on the keyboard first, and then from there you find the guitar and the bass or whatever else you decide to.
With these, yes.
Yeah.
All of them started
And
on keyboard.
And you're playing everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the drums are programmed.
Right.
So.
Right.
But yeah, the drums do what I tell them to do.
Yes.
But I don't play drums. But yes, I'm playing everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you referenced this a little bit earlier, but when we were talking about the track Palindrome, like you saw the essential structure of it and built the song that way.
Yeah.
You want to talk more about that?
Yeah. I just thought it would be that was literally an experiment.
Yeah.
Because I was approaching the song visually. 100%. Not just visually, but visually kind of from my own experience as a photographer and as an art lover. You know, a lot of art that I love has symmetry in it. A lot of old like Renaissance paintings and architecture. I'm just looking. Do any of these photographs here? Well, that one. So I thought, yeah, let's try a song that the first half is one way and the second is literally a mirror image. Although I didn't take the sound and reverse it, I relearned everything in reverse. All the guitars, all the keyboard sounds, the bass, I mean, everything. I guess the only thing even the drums to an extent, they aren't 100% reversed, but I'd say they're about 90%.
And did you feel that like when you reversed it, that you were like, okay, it sounds great this way, but it doesn't sound so great this way? And
No, I
then
was
you had
pleasantly
to-
surprised that it actually sounded really
it
cool.
worked.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. And I guess that says something. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you could philosophize about it a lot. You know, how one thing that has a form that you connect with, whether it's visual or sound or even a name, like the name Anna.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe part of why it sounds nice is because it has that palindrome nature to it. Yeah, I I guess part of me was surprised, and then the other part of me was like, ha, I knew it.
Okay, but I have to say though that um I don't think it's necessarily a given. Like, have you ever heard of those mirrors that people can look into that actually like reverse it so that they see what other people see? Because when we
Yeah.
look at ourselves in the mirror, like we're always seeing the mirror image. We don't see our actual self. And
Yeah, we see ourselves
we
reversed.
say ourselves reverse. So that's the way that we look to ourselves. But
Yeah.
when we actually see, it's like this like creation where you don't see the mirror image, you actually see yourself as others see you. And I've heard of people like running out of that, like, mirror set up screaming because it was just too much for them. So, anyway, that's to say that I wouldn't think that it'd necessarily be a given that
Yeah.
it would
Well,
sound
there's
as
also
good.
that, when people put a mirror right here, or if you take a picture of someone and you split it in one half and then you double it, and they always look really weird.
Yeah. Yeah. But in this case, it worked.
Well, I guess that's actually a good example of what the song eventually, ultimately is, because it is kind of like a human face in that both sides of an average human face are pretty much the same,
Hmm.
but they're not 100% identical. And that happens in the song. Even though the notes and the timing of everything is completely identical, they're not 100% identical because I like the second half of the song, the guitar, for example, the guitar part, the melody, I played it with the song with the notes backwards, right? But
Right.
if I would have done the first half of the song, then taken all that audio and then reversed it, it would have sounded, well, it would have sounded reversed.
Yeah.
And then that's where you would probably have that effect of someone's front facing portrait and then split in half and then they look weird.
Yeah.
Maybe it would sound weird then.
Yeah.
But because it's not 100% symmetrical, it kind of works.
Yeah.
Well, it works for me at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun one. I'm proud of that one. And it's fun to look at the the session here where you can see the symmetry.
Yeah. So that brings us to Home Love.
Home Love. Yeah, that's the chord song.
Yeah.
Yeah. So after having gone through that experience with my teacher of how to get a chord out of a melody, and then having done a few small demos based off of melodies, Opeth-ish, 25 years later, I'm Not Joe Pass, etc. I thought, okay, let's do a song, yet another experiment, kind of like Palindrome. Let's do a song with no melody. Because during that period, I was also running into some interviews online of people defining what music is. So kind of like the popular definition by people who don't really know what they're talking about is that music has to have rhythm, melody. What's the other one?
Hmm?
But then somebody said, oh, but what about rap? That doesn't have melody. Or how about like African percussion? That doesn't have melody. Is that not music?
Yeah.
So anyway, that plus my experience with my teacher, plus everything I had done up until then, made me want to do a song that's just chords as like a challenge. And I guess it does have melody in the sense that it's like a really slow, long melody because each chord ends up being like an individual note. But yeah, that one ended up having a very cinematic kind of vibe to it for me.
Yeah.
And it also has a very powerful kind of feel good feeling to me. Like it makes me feel good and positive, and it makes me feel like confident. And I came up with all these titles for it. that I guess described it a bit, but none of them like really hit me. And then I realized, oh, this makes me think of my family, you, Calder, and Sienna,
Mm-hmm.
and how what we've created since we began has been so incredible, and how that makes me feel. You know, love, safety, possibility. I mean, all these awesome things. So, yeah, I came up with home love. Because it's not just the place, it's us. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And you've got the
And I wanted to have a little tribute because none of this would have been possible without all y'all supporting and putting up with me. So, yeah.
and you've got the astronauts moon landing
Oh, yeah.
in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, because when I started it, when I first did the song, like all these feelings about family came after I had finished it,
Mm-hmm.
or at least finished a bulk of it, because I was trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to call it? The astronaut thing came in because I I thought, oh, I can put in little special effects just like my favorite bands do.
Mm-hmm.
So I started finding little samples, and the song always had like a feeling of flying and like out of this world kind of anything's possible kind of feeling. Mm-hmm. Same thing as family, anything's possible. So the astronaut sounds, I don't know, it may be a little cringy, but yeah, I don't know, I think they fit really well. And there's like, I think the first astronaut sound in there is something like the astronaut saying, "It's nice to be in orbit."
Yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine what that person was thinking when they said that is, it's nice up here. This feels good. Oh my God, look, that's our home down there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. So, okay. So this brings us to fizzy lifting drinks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So fizzy lifting drinks, yet another experiment. I guess this one also, I didn't have a melody. The melody just kind of came out of the chords. So one thing I discovered using the Logic Pro and the keyboard and all that was that it has this cool little tool that's been around for decades called an arpeggiator, which basically what it does is you play a chord and then it plays the individual notes in a sequence, repeating. And I've heard so many bands, musicians use that, and it sounds awesome. Jean-Michel Jarre, Tangerine Dream, and Kraftwerk, Steven Wilson. There's a whole bunch of them that use it. And I thought, oh, let's do a song that just has the arpeggiator, because it's so fun and it's so satisfying to do it. Mm-hmm. Like when you're doing it, you press the chord and it goes. It's just like, oh my God, it feels so good. So when I first started doing it, and I wrote all the chords and I had all the chords the way I liked them. At first I tried with like a whole bunch of different sounds, like synth sounds mostly, until I thought, I think what I did was I hit the strings by accident. When I was looking for instruments, just browsing through all the instruments in Logic, and I hit the strings, one of the string instruments, the violin, by accident. And I was like, oh my God, that sounds so cool. Yeah, so I did an arpeggiator song, which has typically been with synths, which always sounds awesome, but with the violin, which of course I don't play violin. And it ended up having a very kind of playful feeling to it. Like it's kind of like my guilty pleasure song.
Yeah.
Because I'm using the arpeggiator, which I guess in some way you could say it's kind of lazy because you're not actually playing all the songs Not all the songs, all the notes one by one. But it is an instrument. It's a legitimate tool that people use.
Right.
So that eliminated the guilt. I told you one day, oh, maybe if I'm famous one day, or if this song becomes a hit, I'll re-record it with, like, I'll hire an actual violin player and record it for real. That could be cool.
Yeah. So it is like taking a sip of the fizzy lifting drinks, because
Oh my God, yes, totally.
you took a sip of the arpeggiator and off you went.
Of the arpeggiator and the virtual strings.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I did play bass on it, though.
Yeah. Okay, Marmalade Road.
Yes.
So here's my question about this song. It's the most jammy.
It's also, I think it's the longest one, also.
It is the longest.
It goes over 7 minutes.
Yeah, it is over 7 minutes. And I'm curious about when you wrote this song in terms of like the sequence of the other ones, because is this one that you felt like just came to you quickly and like you had to get it out of your system, or did this one come when you were in a place where you had gained confidence and that you felt like you had the space to kind of create a jam tune?
Yeah, it was kind of both. It was actually, and there's a third part to it, because the way this one started was my guitar teacher, the one who is unnamed, he said, okay, do a jam track, right? Which he asked me to do that several times before, but this was one of them, one of those jam tracks. You'll see jam tracks all over the internet, which are basically very, very, very stripped down, or not stripped down, but very simple chord progression with a beat behind it, and it's made to literally jam to, improvise to, for practicing.
Mm-hmm.
So I made this jam track with just some chords, a little bit of a drum beat, and that was it. It was like 3 minutes long, but nothing really happened in it. It was just the chords, but it had like a really cool groove to it. I remember every time I would play it for someone, I would say, there's not much going on here, but it just has such a great groove to it. I just love the groove. So I had that jam track for a while, and it just stayed there. And then I started doing all these other songs. And while I was doing all these other songs, I was recovering from my hand surgery. And then I started playing guitar again. I started to do some guitar parts in the other songs. Those guitar parts were very designed. And then I thought, oh, let's actually jam over my jam track and record and just see how it goes. I'm feeling good. So I did that. And I ended up splicing all these little jam moments together, so it would be like a long melody that I liked. And then I had that for a while, just that jam track with me playing over it. And even though I really liked it, down the road, after having worked on the other songs for a while, I thought this song needs something else. And that's where I put in that second section to it, and it practically doubled in length. Although we didn't mention that in the other songs. There's a bunch of other songs that from the demo I made new sections to them.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what was your question?
Yeah, when you created it, like, so it sounds like it was something that you you put the guitar and when you had kind of hit your stride.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
It's also one of my favorite tracks.
Is it?
Oh, yeah. Now, with how it ended up being, oh, yeah, I love it. Yeah. It's one of the reasons it's near the end. Get that little peak and then...
Yeah. All right, last track.
First Flight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that I did that, okay, I'm going to do a very calm, soothing little song with a very beautiful, simple track. No, with a very beautiful, simple melody. Um, and that's what I did at first with just the keyboard. It was maybe a minute and a half long. Um, so I forgot to mention that pretty much all of these songs, with the exception of who, what, where, when, why, who, what, where, when, why, how,
Mm-hmm.
were all small demos that I did in a span of like maybe 2 or 3 weeks. That later I took each one and I reworked and expanded. And so first flight was the super calm, beautiful melody. And this one does have an extended part. Which is, this is one of those where I was kind of channeling at some point the Pink Floyd Gilmore on that guitar solo.
Yeah.
In the second half. Like I was kind of imagining myself on that hypothetical stage. Yeah. The other cool thing about this song is that that simple melody, which you hear from the beginning, I recorded that guitar part in a really unusual way. I mean, I've never heard of anybody doing this. I'm sure somebody has. But basically what I did was I tried to make the guitar sound kind of like a harp. So typically when you're playing guitar, notes get silenced if you're doing like a run up or down or any kind of phrase. The individual notes, not all the individual notes are ringing unless you like strum a chord.
Mm-hmm.
So since this melody isn't chords, strummed chords, it's actually, one note at a time. I wanted each note to ring out completely. So it turns out that's impossible to play on guitar because your fingers have to go somewhere. So it ended up being, I think it was like 4 different guitar tracks. I had to redesign the entire melody. Well, the melody's the same, but I had to design a way to play it so that each note could ring out. And they're also kind of panned.
Mm-hmm.
Like each track, like let's say the one on the top is panned left, and then the next one is a little bit more this way, and then the next one a little bit more right. And so when you're hearing it, it's kind of going dung 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 dung. Mm-hmm. So that was yet another experiment.
The thing that fascinates me about when you explain how you made it, like physically how you made it, it really dovetails for me in the way that I see it visually. Like the way that I always, the thing that comes to mind when I'm listening to this song is like a water drop going into a pond or a puddle, and the circles, concentric circles that spread out, which are so individual. And that's interesting to me. That it's kind of the way that you played the song.
Yeah.
The single notes.
I mean, they do kind of sound like little drops of water. You know what? I actually had that image when I was doing when I thought of and was doing that guitar melody with the notes ringing. Yeah, I was kind of thinking of that exact same image.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good to know. All right.
Wait, don't you want to talk about the album cover?
Oh, right.
Okay, the album cover, which is there on screen. You can go look for it. What about the album cover?
What do you want to talk about? How we went out
Well, you shot it.
as a family
Yeah.
to make it.
Yeah. For a while, because my photography is very, not all of it, but some of it is very thought out and planned and has an illustrator quality to it. Actually, I remember when we were in the academy in San Francisco, Lon Clark said, "Oh yeah, we call that photo illustration, where you're planning a shot and compositing and putting elements together." And so I did a lot of that. And as an album art fan myself, Hypnosis being my all-time favorite album designer, they did a lot of photo illustration. Although most of the illustration part of it was always done in camera. But anyway, one thing you told me once a while ago when we first started to talk about the album cover was that, this album is about you coming out as a musician. It's a new era for you. It's a new part of your life. So, it'd be cool to not necessarily hide behind your photography skills. Because my first instinct was to do, and I could do this and I could do that and this crazy image here, and I'll be flying upside down with a robot head or something, and you're like, no, keep it simple. This is about you. And I thought, and that really resonated with me always.
Yeah, well, thinking down the road, I was just thinking, about someone that was saying to you how great your album cover was, but they weren't talking to you about the music and how that would feel.
Yeah.
As a musician.
Unfortunately, the album cover is pretty awesome. I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have any tricks.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Doesn't have any tricks.
Doesn't have any. I'm not flying.
Yeah.
Yeah, we literally just went to that rock and I was thinking of okay, well, how about just go stand on that rock? And it kind of ended up being a bit like I'm in one of my landscape photos.
Yeah.
Right? Which is cool. But it has a very I'm here.
Yeah. This
is what I am now with and I wanted to be very careful about having the guitar in the picture because I've seen so many album covers of guitar players in guitar albums where they have their guitar and it looks there are a lot that are really cool, but some of them are pretty ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want it to be ridiculous. So I tried to make it kind of as natural as possible. Meaning not striking a pose or pretending like I'm doing a chord or playing or just kind of, here I am now.
Yeah. Well,
and this is what I'm going to do. And this is me. But yeah, it was awesome that it was a family effort. That was super awesome. I loved that so much.
Well, bringing your teenage daughter to the photo shoot was a good plan because she's not going to let you get too pretentious. She's not going to let you be anyone other than who you are.
Yep.
So it was a good check.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, there's not much else to explain about the cover, which was the whole point.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just me, and that's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been fun talking about your record.
Yeah. I hope the 3 people that see this enjoy it. If you've come this far. Oh my God. Okay.
All right.
All right.